Eric. I have kidney failure. I've been on PD dialysis for the last year. There's kind of two primary ones out there, PD and hemo. PD is generally the one you do at home, not always, but sometimes. And I guess wanted to show how you set up this machine and a few things about it, maybe share a few tips along with it in case there's someone out there that's on the verge of having to start doing dialysis, kind of what day in the life looks like. Like I mentioned, I do PD dialysis, and basically the concept of that is you have a port and you pump sugar water into you, and it's very much like putting sugar on top of strawberries, where it kind of pulls that moisture out. The more sugar you put on top of it, the more water a lot of times it will pull out. And it kind of is the same concept. There's three different varieties of PD solution. There's the yellows, which are the 1.5s. There is the greens, which are 2.5, and I'm not even sure what the reds are for. Possibly, I've never had to use one of those, and that will greatly vary from person to person in your, I guess, your requirements and the remaining kidney function you have. So, kind of my supplies here. I got my PD machine back here that I hook up to every night when I go to bed, and I'm on that for about 8 hours. I go through 4 cycles, and that fluid gets pumped into me, a total of 250 milliliters at a time, and that sits and dwells in me for an hour and 38 minutes. And that cycles out 4 times. So I'm basically hooked up to this machine for probably about 9 hours. I gotta get up at 5:30 in the morning to go to work. That means I gotta be hooked up to this machine at 8:30 p.m. to be able to get up on time. So a little bit about my supplies here. Like I mentioned, they're basically like bags of sugar water. You see, like the box has actually got some yellow tape on it here. You also notice the bag itself, you'll be able to see that a little bit better, has got a little yellow indicator, and then of course it says right on the bag itself 1.5 dextrose. I have just 2 examples up here of the cassettes, or kind of the cables you might call them, to hook up. I just hook up and I have everything all here. I have all that fluid go into a drain bag, and in the morning I gotta pick up my drain bag, and this will be filled pretty much all with fluid, and I'll have to go dump that down the drain. Another option is you can use a different cassette, like this one, where the cables are quite a bit longer, and I can run that out. You know, if there's a bathroom close by, you can run that into the toilet or into the sink or bathtub, and it gives you a little bit more flexibility to be able to walk around, where these ones are only 10 feet. In reality, when I'm hooked up to this thing, I can maybe get to the end of the bed, or maybe just slightly further. So my wife a lot of times has to be the one that turns the light off. But we also let our dog sleep in the room at night. And you know, he's confined down here at the end of the bed, or not the end of the bed, but actually on the floor at the end of the bed. Our cats are not allowed in here at night, because when this machine's all going, these cables are kind of flopping around and stuff, and it's a temptation for the cats to want to bite on that. And of course, that fluid's going into your stomach, and you can end up with peritonitis. So that's really not a good thing. So what we do is we shut our doors at night. We lock the cats out. It's an unfortunate thing, and just hoping for that day to return once, you know, transplant happens. But we do allow the dog, because he's well trained. He knows to stay out of this area. And sometimes I'll even put like a little block or something when we first started doing this, just to make sure we knew. Just something to kind of block. I got a garbage can here. You know, you could probably put like a pillow or something, but I think it all depends on your dog as well. So I guess what we'll do is we'll set this machine up, and I'm just gonna walk you through that process here real quick. So the very first thing we gotta do is we gotta get our hands nice and clean. So we're gonna run to the bathroom and get our hands washed up. You can see here in the bathroom, I got kind of my little setup thing in here. I got bandages and stuff, so when I clean my port after getting out of the shower. I also, you'll notice this little paper towel thing. I'm not drying my hands on towels here. I'm trying to be as sterile as I possibly can. So what I'm going to do is wash my hands 20 seconds, try to get in all different areas. And then rinse everything off, grab some paper towels, dry my hands, and use the towels to shut off the sink, as well as I use the towels to open up my bathroom or bedroom door, just so I'm not touching that stuff. So you gotta wear a mask here before I start this process. This soap is supplied by Baxter. I was told by the nurse it doesn't have to be an antibacterial soap, but obviously that's probably a little bit more preferred. But they're just saying something that lathers really well is one of the things they recommended. So when you're washing your hands, of course, getting your fingertips, getting all the crevices kind of on these bottom parts here. If you got jewelry, kind of, make sure you get up and under there. Another little tip, if you have an Apple Watch, there's a feature you can enable on that watch that will notify you once you've reached your 20 seconds of washing your hands. And it's just kind of a nice little feature. If you have one of those watches, you can enable that, and it comes in really handy for this, just to make sure you're following good practices. So like I said, I'm not going to just shut the faucet off. I'm going to try not to touch anything, grab my paper towels, grab my hands really well. And then shut the sink off, and then we'll use this to go ahead into the bathroom. So you can see how I'm going to grab the door handle. Alright, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to flip on the machine. On the back side back here, there's a little switch. And then you should start to see this light up here in just a minute. Sometimes it's a little slow. I shouldn't say it's a little. It's very slow. So it's kind of going up. And then usually while that's booting up, I will grab a drain bag. Generally there's 2 of them in a bag. I actually already have one out. Just kind of wanted to show that. And in my situation, since I am not draining directly into a bathtub or something, I'm just draining right into a drain bag. There's 2 clips here. And I just closed this big one because this other one here is the one that I'm going to actually end up hooking up to. Another thing I would recommend is I've had 2 of these bags go bad, and I've been very lucky where we've always had it in a little rubber tote bin like this. So if there is a leak, the whole mess is in here, and I can just take this and go dump it out when it's all said and done. I think if I were to stay on this for a while longer, I have the hope of a transplant coming up here soon. But I would probably recommend doing a cart. These machines generally have like a 2-hour battery life, so if you lose power for 2 hours, it will still keep track of the time and everything. So if you had it on a cart, like I mentioned, I come in here at 8:30 at night. I could theoretically fill up a little bit earlier, unplug the machine, wheel the cart out of here if the machine's on the cart, and then go plug it in and go sit and watch some TV or something. The main thing is I have to be in a confined area where, one, pets are not animals, or any animals are not in the room, as well as people. And I got to be able to have control of the vents so I can shut all the airflow off to the room. We do have an air purifier over on that side of the room. In ours, we have a little remote for it, so it works out kind of nice where I can just shut it off when I need to, kind of get my stuff dealt with, and then hook back up. So we got our drain bag down there, we got our clamp closed. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to use one of these cassettes. I just slide it open. And usually I kind of grab it right in the loop like this. And you see one side you got a plate, and the other side is the part that goes into this machine. So on the machine I got a little door here.
Wait, let me get closer.
On the machine here it says press to start to go. So I'll hit go. And it will kind of relieve some pressure. Sometimes this door is really hard to open if you don't do that. I think there's like a pin that you could potentially snap. I've heard of people doing. And it says load the set. So it's kind of telling me what to do. So we're going to take this little spongy area here and we're going to put that right into here. And if you look closely here, there's a little groove here that the hoses all slide right on through so they don't get pinched at all. And you just kind of press it on in there. And then you just shut the door. And then what I usually do is I just break this band here. And then I can just grab this plate and just drop this, and it all kind of unravels all nicely here. So you'll notice there's a little knob down here, and then there's a little tab there. It kind of all correlates with this. So you take this top part, you slide in there, and then this bottom part should snap right onto. In my particular case, I got 6 clamps I'm going to have to close. I got this one here. And you just close all these clamps. Dark blue one, 2 white ones, 1 red one. And then on this line, this is the very first line is the one that goes to the drain line. And there's a Y on there. And you want to, in my case, since I'm only connecting to one drain bag, I close this other one. And I use this to connect to the drain bag. So like I said, there was that kind of skinnier line here. You got to pull the cap off of that. And you just push it in. So it's all connected there. And then usually what I do after I do that is I flip this lid down. And I just leave a little gap in this Tupperware container. And I actually since I have it here against the wall, I just kind of tuck this piece here under there. So you see it kind of just holds it under there. Just stay in place. And I leave this clamp open so that allows fluid to go into that bag. So now that we got all these clamps closed, we're going to hit the green button on this, load the set, and it's going to do please wait. And right now it's going to do some self-testing to make sure that those lines all hold pressure and everything. So while that's doing that, I'm going to pull one of these fluids out and I'm going to put it on top of this heater bag. So these usually take about a half hour or so to warm up. So a lot of times I will go set my machine up. Like I said, I generally hook up at 8:30. I'll go in and hook the machine up 7:30. I mean, you could hook it up as early as you want it. You could, as soon as you tear it down, you could reset it back up and have it ready to go for the night. But I like to have this thing all set to go because the very first thing it does is it drains, and then after it gets done draining me, it will start filling me. And if this fluid isn't up to temperature, I gotta wait for it to warm up. So a lot of times just setting it up about a half hour early allows this fluid to warm up enough, and then you're not waiting around at all. You also notice there's a lot of garbage that comes along with this. So this is self-testing. So I got everything kind of sitting here waiting, and while it's doing that, I actually have a bottle of hand sanitizer. And I will use that right now. Oh shoot, I probably should have put the other bag in. I'll touch on that real quick. And so the other bag just has to be somewhat close to the machine. Not everybody's going to have 2 bags. Some people might have 3 bags. It depends on kind of your prescription. So this other bag, I just set right on top of this. And so what it does is it always pumps out of this heater bag. So when this thing first fills me, this bag goes down a bunch. And it all goes into me. And then while that's doing that, it will pump this up to this. And then let that get up to temperature. So what we need to do is get our machine hooked up to here really quick. So if you look here, we had that very first line that went down to our drain bag. The second line over, you notice there's a red clamp on here. That's the one that goes to the heater bag here. Then we got these other 2 ones, which I only use one of these 2, but you know, depending on your prescription, you might have 3 bags potentially. So I just grabbed the next one over. And if you actually look at these 2, they're on a Y clip. So it doesn't actually matter at all. You just need to pick one and make sure. If you're using only one, you got to make sure the other clamp is closed. So that one will connect up to my second bag. And then you notice this line here is dark blue one. I've never used this one. I was told that this one's like if, let's say you get peritonitis, then they got to pump antibodies or like a medicine into you every month. And I was told that that's the line that they use. And then this final one here is actually the patient line. You notice that this one's actually a little bit higher, so it's kind of important that this one's seated in here nicely because eventually this thing's going to prime, it's going to push fluid all the way up here, and you want as little air as possible, no air, because otherwise that stuff can end up into you. And so it's really important that you have it seated as right to the very top of this. So the first thing we're going to do is get this red one hooked up. So a lot of times what I do is I just pop this down, and I pull the little clip thing on here, and then I pull the other one, and I just connect them. Just twist on, and then there's a little piece in here that you got to break. I've heard sometimes people say like you got to go around the world, you know, break that little seal, and then I will open up this clamp here after I get the other bag hooked up. So hook up the other bag real quick. We'll break that clip there. Then we'll open the clamp up. Open this clamp up. And then we need to open the patient line clamp. Sometimes you forget to open some of these. A lot of times it will kind of start beeping at you rapidly if you get that incorrect. I have had it where it has not realized that the patient line's not primed, and I've been getting ready to hook up, and so I realize there's no fluid there, and then there's a step you have to do to go and get it primed. But we shouldn't need to deal with that today. Pretty easy thing to do. So I got all three of those clamps open. The one's going to my 2 bags, and then I got the clamp open to go into the patient line. And then we're going to hit go here. And it's going to say priming. And you'll watch these lines here. They're going to start bouncing around a bunch. Really important you don't have a cat in the room if they have any playfulness in them at all. So what this thing's doing when it's priming is it's pushing all the air out of the lines and pushing the air down into the drain bags here. You don't really want to get that air into you because you're going to end up with a lot of shoulder pain. So just kind of let this thing do its thing here. So I want to show you guys what this process looks like to get hooked up to this machine. Unfortunately, something happened to the audio, so you're going to just have to listen to me voice over for this. I really apologize for that. So I had already taken my weight. The reason for that is generally I take my vitals every night before getting hooked up, and then I check them again in the morning. Vitals meaning I check my weight, I check my temperature, blood pressure, sitting and standing, and I mark that all down on a clipboard next to my bed. The part of the reason I check my weight is that we have carpet in the bedroom, and it's very hard to get an accurate weight if I had a scale kind of sitting under the bed or something. So just like when getting the machine set up, we got to get a mask on first and then get our hands nice and clean. I did want to touch really quickly on why I like PD over hemodialysis. A couple reasons. One is you're hooking up every single night, where hemodialysis you tend to go in clinic 3 times a week, and usually it's kind of during business hours, so it's harder to hold down a job, as well as being able to hook up a little bit more often. You tend to feed a little bit better, and it tends to lessen your food restrictions, as well as if you're someone that's on a water or fluid intake limitation, it helps relieve some of that. The other nice part is there's no blood at all they have to deal with, and it's pretty nice. So you notice I got some Alkavis stuff. It's sort of like a bleach solution that we're going to use to clean the port. Also notice I have a bin down here. There's a whole bunch of these, what they're called mini caps. We put a fresh one of these on every morning when it comes time to get unhooked off this machine. So what we're going to do is we're going to pull one of these off when we get unhooked. You'll be able to see that, and we'll obviously put a fresh one on in the morning. And those have iodine in them. Also in this bin, you'll notice I got these kind of blue pads that are kind of like dog pee pads or something, and then I got some 4x4s. These blue pads, like I mentioned, that Alkavis solution is sort of a bleach solution, and when you get time to clean the end of your port here, that stuff can wreck your clothes, or if it gets on your sheets, wreck your sheets. Even using one of these pads the whole entire time, I've managed to wreck a couple of sheets already over the last year here. These supplies also are all supplied by Baxter. Even during the big, huge COVID outbreak back in March of 2020, I was still able to get masks and all these different supplies, hand sanitizer and stuff. So they seem to put us at top priority for someone that's doing dialysis, because it's so important. So this Alkavis solution, shake it up here really well, and then we're going to douse this 4x4 solution, or 4x4 pad, I'm sorry about that. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull my port out. I have a little waistband that I use to keep that in there. I really like this thing quite a bit. This is not the one that they a lot of times will give you at the DaVita Center. It's a third-party one. It's a little bit softer, where the one at the DaVita Center tends to be a little bit more uncomfortable. And there's a couple reasons I like this. One thing I tell you I don't like about it is it can sometimes ride up a little bit, and it feels like your underwear, riding at your belly button or something. It's not the most comfortable feeling. But the one thing I do like about it is it's pretty quick. It does a pretty good job holding things really nice and snug against your body, so less chance of getting your port damaged at all, as well as when it comes time to hook up at night. You'll notice that I'll feed my line through there, so it'll act as another anchor point. So let's say my line's kind of pinched under some blankets, or kind of tangled in some blankets, and I roll over. It doesn't happen very often, very rare. It's just another anchor point where this thing's not pulling directly on my skin or out of the skin. You'll notice I'm also working the kinks out of this line. Try to get that thing nice and straight as possible, because if the line kinks at all during the middle of the night, you're going to get an alarm, because it'll sense that the fluid's not going in or out very well, and you'll have to wake up and deal with silencing that alarm and getting the kink worked out. So I'll take that 4x4 pad, and a lot of times what I'll do is I'll just wipe the whole end of this down really well, and then you'll notice on this, right where the cap meet is, sort of that white part where that black is, and that's where we want to spend most of our time cleaning that. The DaVita Center generally recommends cleaning it for 60 seconds or more, so it's not really the quickest process. If you look also just right off to the right side there, you can see those little white spots on the bed kind of by my pillow and the gray sheets. That's all from the Alkavis stuff. somehow I managed to get it all over the place like I mentioned before. So what we'll do is we'll get this cleaned here for 60 seconds. We won't make you watch all that, and then we'll pick it up from there. So a lot of times what I do is I kind of grab it, pinch it between my two fingers. That way it gives me the ability to still use my fingers, but then I have a anchor point to be able to pull this cap off. You need a little tug on a little bit. You'll see a little fluid popped out there. It's not a big deal. And then a lot of times I'll pop that cap before I open up my other one. Also on this, the end of my PD connection piece there is a little roller, so I'm not totally opened up to the world yet. So a lot of times I'll kind of wipe things down. You notice in that cap as well, you can see that red iodine in there. So now we got everything nice and connected up. A lot of times I'll kind of wipe around the threads, get things cleaned up. Sometimes you'll see a little bit of red or something on there. Like I mentioned, that's from the iodine that's inside the cap. Just trying to add an extra layer of sterilization. So now we'll take that roller and we'll open it up. This is opening up the line to my stomach now at this point, or my stomach cavity. Then we'll stuff that back through my belt, try to make sure nothing's getting pinched at all. And then we'll start getting things fired up here. So it's really nice to have a garbage can right next to the bed because you can dump all that stuff right on in there really quickly. Also, another important supply to have right by everything is a bottle of sanitizer, which is really nice for when you're setting up the machine. But also in the morning, you got to get your hands clean, and if you don't have the ability to get to a sink, you're not able to do that. So you can see here, I'm just showing my clipboard. That's where I record my sitting and standing blood pressure as well as my temperature. I already got my weight written down there. So on the machine here, it says connect yourself. That's kind of what it got done when it said priming. So I hit the go. Some people will have fluid left in them at the end of the day. Like in the morning, the machine will purposely leave fluid inside of you, maybe like 500 milliliters, so it has time to soak all day. In my case, I'm totally emptied at the time of morning. So if you notice, it says 0 milliliters. That's telling the machine how much fluid to expect that's in there. But let's say the machine leaves 500 milliliters in you. Usually that will be set at like 500 milliliters or something close to that. So it has a rough idea on how much fluid should be expecting to come out of there. So I hit the green button. Now it says drain volume. This takes a couple minutes to start going here, but usually this is where people tend to have issues with PD dialysis. This is a lot of times where you hear about drain pain. If you think about it, you got a line that's going into your stomach cavity, and when it starts sucking fluid out, maybe if there isn't very much liquid in there or something, it might kind of snug an organ or two right up against some of that line, and it sort of creates like a pinching feeling. It's not the most comfortable thing. I tended to struggle with that more in the first 2 weeks as my body adjusted to doing PD dialysis, but I haven't had a ton of issues since then. I found a couple things that help quite a bit. For example, that roller, when you open up your port, it gives you a little bit of leeway. It's not wide open or shut. There's an in between. And one thing I found that just even kind of opening it halfway to limit the amount of suction that it can do during that process helps quite a bit. Another thing that I found that helps a lot is just changing positions. I actually have found that sitting up seems to work better. Other people have the opposite. Some people find it better, laying on their left side, laying down, or laying on their right side. Just changing positions and kind of playing around with some things. And I've also heard some people where they'll actually like pinch the line to shut it off for just a few seconds, so it allows that organ to kind of get away from it, and then slowly kind of take the pinch out of the line and let it resume. Because the machine won't air right away if there is a pinch in the line. It usually takes a couple minutes before it does that. And sometimes just getting that organ off there can help relieve some of that as well. But, to be honest, it hasn't been that bad for me. I know other people have had troubles and other people have had no issues. There is also one other setting that they can change on the machine as well. So like I mentioned, this thing pumps fluid in you. It dwells for a period of time, then it gets sucked out. And then it repeats that process, several times through the night. Well, like for my case, I have 4 cycles. So in somewhere probably about 11 o'clock, it's going to suck this fluid out of me, and that's where I might potentially wake up to some drain pain. And there's a setting that you can change on the machine, or a lot of times the dialysis clinic will do that for you, where it will leave some remaining residual fluids in you. So let's say it pumps 2,500 milliliters into you, and then it comes time to drain. It might only drain 2,000 and leave 500 in there, because it's usually the very last little bits is where you experience the drain pain. So just by changing that setting, and that was one setting that changed for me, and it made a world of a difference. I wasn't getting woken up in the middle of the night because of drain pain. So this is kind of really what it is. It's going to sit here, it's going to drain, and like I mentioned earlier, if I hadn't gone in here a little bit earlier and set this machine up, when it came time to start filling me after it gets done doing the very first initial drain, it will have to go through the warm-up process. Otherwise, once this thing finishes, it will start pumping fluid into me right away. So here you can see it's now gone to the fill 1 of 4. So kind of off for the night here, and now I should be able to tuck in and unhook once the morning rolls around. If you're someone that's on the verge of going on to dialysis, I really like the solution. Please consider subscribing if you found this information helpful, and we'll see you on the next one. Thanks for watching.